Hello there, good morning everybody. Welcome to another Kerfuffle showcase. And I am absolutely delighted to have today with me Kye Wheatley. Hello, Kye.
Hello there, Simon.
Hello there. You are here representing both sides of the industry, which is lovely, bringing balance to the force. You are here as an agent in your own right from the hugely successful Keatons. And you've also, because you didn't have enough on your plate, decided you want to be a little bit of prop tech as well. So we're here today to talk about that side of things from Area, which is a very exciting innovation development that I've been tracking for some time. And I think people today are going to be very excited to hear about that. Just for those that have lived under a rock, though, first, as I indeed look like I have done these last few weeks. Kye, just give us a bit of background about yourself and obviously about the shape that Keaton's has taken over the last few years, because we've obviously dealt with each other for years over at Repeat and everything else. It's been amazing to see the development of your. You know, I won't speak out of turn, but it was clear you were going places. But even I couldn't have seen just how big and powerful you were going to become in your own area. Do you want to just give us a bit of background on that?
Yeah, I mean, primarily I'm an estate agent, have been for 30 years. So through that evolution, I've seen sort of pre-websites, portals, the old traditional black and white property details, applicant cards, right through to where we're at today. And I think we're at a really exciting junction now of where agency can go. I think we're on a real cusp of seeing some very significant change. And what's exciting about it is all the dots are starting to join up on the technology side to really support the agency side. Whereas even though there's been the CRMs and property portals around for many years, problem we've had as estate agents and businesses is sort of joining all the dots and making it all work succinctly and nicely together. But it really feels like that's starting to all come together nicely, which poses some really exciting things that we can do as agents and hopefully make ourselves even more efficient, because when we look at the business over the last 30 years, and Keaton's has been going 22 of those, is that agency or estate agents haven't actually got that much more efficient. In fact, they've actually got less efficient in terms of profitability. And there are reasons for that around regulation and more information that we have to produce and deliver. But at the same token, the technology should have really got us to a place where we are more efficient as businesses. And I think we're in a cusp of that now, starting to pay dividends back to us in the industry on that side of the fence.
It did sound for a minute there like you were almost blaming the lack of ability to do stuff with your CRM software as being down to the timing as when I was at the business, and it's all started to get a bit better as I left. Is that?
I think a bit like humans, it would be much better if everyone talked together and you get a better outcome. And of course, that maybe didn't happen for a whole number of reasons, and some of it was actually from the ability for different products to look and work succinctly with one another. But that is now no longer the case, and with applications all working from the cloud and such, like this ability to communicate seamlessly with one another is becoming the reality, and that's what's really exciting about the next stage, I believe.
I definitely agree with you there. I mean, I do think you were kind enough to join us on the PropTech 3.0 panel, and I loosely made the kind of the assumption, the stipulation that we're kind of in the third age of PropTech now. We had PropTech, which was the old styles, products, the Solixes, the Estate Crafts of the world, all of those base ones. We then moved into an exciting but very chaotic period where you had a lot of, an explosion of prop techs doing very, very narrow things. Often, if we're honest, not particularly well thought through, developed by a lot of bedroom techies who didn't know the industry, arse from their elbow. And what I think is just fascinating at the moment is seeing people like yourself, our friend Christian over at the Depository, people who are out there experiencing these real day challenges within their own agencies and saying, look, do you know what, actually, it's not like the forbidden forest anymore. We actually have the ability to create these tools ourselves. And as you said, even more excitingly, and maybe not overnight, but it looks like the CRM companies are now opening up to provide, with the, and let's face it, they are still the single source of truth, the ability for companies like yours to integrate. So I agree with you. I think there's a lot still to become clear, and we're all still kind of, hoping it happens quicker rather than it is at the moment. But it is a very exciting period, I would suggest.
Yeah, definitely. And look, the scale of that challenge, and there's no criticism in CRMs. I mean, we're talking about a highly complex situation with the property sector is incredibly complex. We have so many parties involved, and there lies the problem, because we're trying to get all parties to look at the same information, and it's incredibly difficult to do. Hence why it's taken 20 years and we're still evolving that process. But it does feel over the next 2 to 3 years, that's all going to come together nicely.
Yeah, perfect. And look, well, today, the actual title of our showcase today is Modernize Your Agency with this new lead management software. So talk us through, obviously, you talked about, obviously, the very successful side of your business. What was it that within your business that made you think about Area? And just give us an overview of what Area is about before we dig into the detail.
Yeah, this all came about 4 years ago. Much like many of the agents that operate today, we have a CRM system. We had a number of other sort of third-party products that we utilise and still do today. But one of the areas that we were really felt that we were in the dark with our own business about, and I tend to work on data. I like to know the ins and outs of what's going on, and I was unable to do that in my business, was really understanding about. We spend a considerable amount of money on marketing, and most estate agencies, it's somewhere between their second and fourth largest cost that they single item in their business. But we're very poor on understanding what happens from the top of the funnel, or that money we spend to get the lead come in, to then actually converting that lead into a transactional state where we're going to earn some money from it. I was certainly in that boat. There was very basic questions I was asking us as a business that we were unable to answer. And that's actually really scary. At the start, it's blissful ignorance, because you just assume that you are doing a good job.
Yeah.
But of course, as with anyone that deals with a lot of data will know, is that data doesn't lie. And then if you can get that correctly, efficiently, and completely up to date to the people that can make the decisions, it's a really powerful tool. So that was how the concept of Area was created. So the concept's one thing, but the execution and getting to actually deliver that is somewhat different. So we were fortunate to find some very smart tech people that created the business with us. And even though we could bring the agency side, they very much brought the technical know-how. And they wasn't actually from in the industry, which actually has been a real benefit, because they look at it very much through the consumer's eyes and not from the agent eye. And that's been massively valuable. And I think the thing where it was different, you mentioned earlier about sort of this isn't tech people creating something they think needs to be resolved. We showed them the problem. And they actually went further than that. They actually sat in our business for 6 weeks before anything actually commenced and spoke to all the end users in our business. And the thing that scared them about it was the level of inefficiency in terms of the way that estate agents typically work is sequential. Customer inquires, agent has to respond. There's normally a telephone tennis or communication back and forth before the next stage can happen, which makes or creates a credible amount of inefficiency. So they was all about how can we create 2 channels so customer and agent can continue on that path, so the experience and how that customer service delivery is improved and can continue all the way through. And that's really the concept of how Area came about, and then that's what we started building.
Okay, and how long was it before it started bearing fruit? I assume you were testing all this internally within Keaton's, weren't you? Just getting it, essentially getting the minimum viable product tested on your own team.
Yeah, we worked on what they call an agile fashion, which is every 2 weeks we discussed an issue. They went away and built and brought that back to us, and we started testing in the following 2 week cycle while they carried on with the next one. And that happened for 6 months before we even thought about going to market and offering to other agencies. And that allowed us to, interestingly, that's what we do with most business owners, is we formulate an opinion based on what we think and being told. But actually, I found out the reality of that can be somewhat different when you have data. So you can make a preconception about what a customer does or is willing to do, same as you can make a preconception about how your agents are interacting and dealing with. But when you then see the physical outcome of that, you then start making decisions based on actual as opposed to the thought process. And that was really, really transformational about how we developed and how quickly the product moved on.
So I've sat around many groups of estate agents, as obviously that's pretty much been my career to date, and spent a large percentage of that time giggling, really, as you've seen the false bravado and, let's face it, a little bit of bullshit when somebody inevitably starts getting a bit clever and starts talking about the cost per lead, the cost per acquisition, and then suddenly you realise you see everyone else get into the game and they're basically just going higher or lower. It is astonishing, isn't it, that actually we don't have at our fingertips those kind of those stats, that we don't have at least an inkling of where the business is coming from. Because as you quite rightly point out, almost the supplier side of the business is obsessed with pouring things in the top of that funnel. And actually we do see there is a link between getting those solutions and then the business you get out the back end. But it's so difficult to tie the actual ROI to any meaningful level, isn't it?
100%. And I think, obviously, whether you love or loathe them, the arrival of online agents and their ability to transact with customers digitally far better than conventional high street agents has really given us a wake-up call, because and the statistics have proved that when we created Air and started using it, we were seeing a 30% conversion on an inquiry being made and someone wanting to go through the digital path of communication. Yep. That number is now over 60% of people that are completing the full process, which I'd like to run through. And that metric's only increasing. And of course, with the current situation we've just had with COVID and all of the people getting more in tune with Zoom and such like, is that metric's only going to accelerate quite considerably over the short term and probably then for the long term as well. So as agents, we've always been a bit that, you know, we offer a fabulous service and customers will dance to our tune, but actually we have to dance to their tune because they're requesting to deal and transact in that way. And I think, you know, if you think about it look at it from the consumer side, not an agent side, when you're going out to market and looking at properties, you're looking typically at a portal that they generally generate about 90% of an agent's traffic. So from all intents and purposes, the company and the branding is irrelevant because they're looking at the property. That's the primary part of what they're searching for. So you don't really manage or control that relationship at the early stage of it. So the key, what we've tried to do with Area is, as soon as someone inquires, is to bring that into the company fold, and they can then manage that relationship with the customer that they then want to. And if you understand when a customer's coming to you, how they're coming to you, that allows you to make important decisions in your business about when, how, and what you do as well. And you know, most businesses are unable to answer how many leads they get, let alone about when those leads are coming, what the customer's doing, how much they're willing to complete, what the agent is doing to interact with that customer, the level of communication and such like. So these are critical points for how you convert a lead to a transactional state. And I think if you get that information readily available to the agents and the people that run the business, you're going to make important decisions that will drive efficiency back into it.
That just seems obvious, doesn't it? I mean, that's just a truism, what you're talking about there. Can I give you a supposition that I've had for some time, Kye? And you can tell me again whether I'm talking bollocks or whether, for once, like a broken clock, I'm right twice a day. I've made myself very unpopular with marketing directors, and in fact many people over the years, telling them that agents are not short of estate agency leads. they are actually short of the ability to deal with the amount of leads that they actually receive, the ability to prioritize, let's call them the Glengarry, Glen Ross leads, the hot leads, right? And to deal with those that are probably unkindly called the tire kickers there, because they all get put into one big mass, and actually, because they then just don't get dealt with in the proper fashion, by default they are going to become tire kickers, because as we know, speed of response, and I know this is an absolutely key area that you obviously focus on, is what you're about. Am I wrong in that, do you think, after going down that line?
No, not at all. And of course then you can see how the whole situation of slow response comes about, because agents are drowning in amount of leads. You're trying to go through the volume of leads to determine those that are serious and those that you can move forward with. And the process of doing that actually is incredibly manual from a digital perspective. Going back into an agency, there's a lot of phone calls to qualify and quantify individuals. So the whole process of ERA is about trying to take a consumer through all of those stages. So once an agent then calls, and I still in the old school belief that a phone call is still the best tool that we have in the business as an estate agent, but we don't have to use that time as data collecting. Why not get that process all through a digital platform? So when an agent then contacts a consumer, it goes into a transactional state where they can add value to the process, save an agent an infinite amount of time. And your answer to your question there is the average agency at the moment is experiencing a 15 to 20x volume of leads against what they do in a transactional state.
Yeah.
So that's 15 to 20 times you've got to interact with someone to get something going to a state where you can actually earn some money from that. That consumes considerable time, hence the waste of the inefficiency.
I feel like I should do a testify thing there, because I mean you're absolutely talking to the converted here. That is absolutely spending time. Let the digitized journey essentially be taken care of to allow you to be proactive and actually make the best use of your time when you've got them on the phone, isn't it? That's what it's got to be about.
Yeah, look, agents are very short on time, particularly at this moment in time. It's chaotic out there, it's hectic. So anything that gives them back time. I mean, the industry average of the agents processing leads is around 50 to 60 per head. What that doesn't take into account is the quality of response and the frequency of response.
Yeah,
we're seeing agents that using the area platform processing 150, 200 leads. High achievers are somewhere in the 300 to 400 lead volume. So the efficiency gain that gives back to a business in terms of how many leads that they can process individually, but not only volume, quality, because we have up to 8 touch points in the course of the first 7 days. 50% of digital leads in our industry go unanswered.
It's
graceful. It's an embarrassment. So you're better off cutting down your advertising spend by half and then trying to process leads properly, or just deal with all of them properly from the outset. So maybe I should just explain to anyone listening is what happens is digital lead is inquired from any channel, whether that's the portal, your own website, or another source. Area automatically responds to that within 1 second, and that's in your branding. So even if it's a portal inquiry and it comes into you're taking it into your branding, your response. We then ask the customer to complete out their availability when they're available. We're looking to see if there's opportunity for them to sell or let a property. We then go through an onboarding process where we get them to build their profile. And 60% of customers are now doing this before an agent's even touched it. We then social proof them to find out if we can find their profile on LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook.
Yeah.
And all of that we then present to an agent onto a real-time dashboard. And we actually have now recently introduced a scoring system where we score the digital lead based on the amount of quality information they've submitted. So like through the old school stage where you used to register someone in front of you and then say they were hot to trot and they knew you were going to be able to deal with them. The system's already doing that. And the new feature that we've introduced on that, which is we also introduced alternative properties. So Customer inquiries on Rightmove, you automatically respond from your branding, and at the end of them completing the profile, you offer them alternative properties from your agency, which means that they can then select whether they want to see other properties and also give feedback on the ones they don't. So agent then, that inquiry came in overnight, agent arrives next morning, they've now got all the information on the customer. They've now got 3 inquiries, not the one they originally inquired around. We've got some feedback of when properties they're not interested in, and we now know when they want to go and see that property. That's a massive head start for an agent when they make that first call to then make that happen.
It's fascinating that. So we're not talking about just in case anyone gets the wrong end of the. We're not talking about some people have basic autoresponders, are we? This is like auto responding on steroids here. This is actually intuitively using machine learning, understanding what based on their requirements to match them up to the agent's own stock. There, isn't it? What any good neg would do anyway. To be honest, in the early stages.
The tool isn't to replace agency, it's to give agents more time so they can spend more time having the meaningful conversations that add value to the process. So, for example, the proper offering alternative properties. We know as an estate agent, when you phone someone, that's never part of what you would do in the process. But we know in the real world, agents are busy, they're trying to process high volume of leads. It doesn't always have the time to do that in an efficient manner. We allow the agents to set and configure the algorithm unique to their particular business and geography as well, which means that they can develop the search results to come back to the level they want. And we're finding the automatic algorithm is proving to be as successful as the agents manually matching. You just think of the time that saves them.
That's the very definition of technology, though, isn't it? Doing what a human can do in less time, and if you can get to that stage, the whole point about it is let make the human beings do the most dollar productive activities, isn't it? So and as we all know, we've all got less staff at the moment, or certainly comparative to the amount of business we've got. That's absolutely answering the need for many agents.
Yeah, and like the other thing as well, virtual tours have obviously become a big thing recently since COVID. So one of the little developments we brought into that is on that auto response, the first page the customer gets, if there is a virtual tour available on that property, we put that front and center as the link on the first page they go to. And some agents are putting messages in that you've got to view this pre actually doing a physical viewing. We're just trying to save agents time, really. So get information to the consumer that's going to make it helpful for them to make a decision and cut down information or work that an agent would typically manually have to do.
Yeah. Well, living up to the title of Whaley Waffle, I'll come on to the second question in a minute because we've spent quite a while there on the first one. But there's a few questions flying in at the moment. Hi, Rob. Rob Brady just popped in, making the point that ROI can never be achieved when you have an estate agency full of data silos. Couldn't agree with you more. It is a big challenge for any agency. People like yourself, Kye, haven't you? You've solved one of the basic issues there, which is getting rid of the silo on the sales side of the business and on the letting side of the business and bringing that together, isn't it? There's now challenges for bringing in the marketing and the email marketing kind of suites. And also the website. I think that's then, I was going to say the Holy Trinity, but there's 4 of them, so it doesn't really work. But that's really what we're talking about. Is that once we can get those together there, utilising tools like you does promise to solve. And actually what's really interesting is that whilst there are big projects in there, they are all out there. The solutions are out there to make this happen now, aren't they? Which they simply weren't 2-3 years ago. We've got Christian Byfield, you're too late, Christian. We mentioned you earlier, but he makes the point that he's heard from Spencer. I think that's fair to say, isn't it? Spencer from Paramount is one of yours, talking about area. 2 fantastic agents, keen to put this in place before Christmas. I don't know if that's a kerfuffle lead, but we'll claim it anyway. Sharon, you always miss the beginning. That's absolutely fine, Sharon. You're always late. It's always available, as you know, on the area landing page on the website, and of course on Facebook. There. What's the software called, please? It's called Area, Sharon, and we will post a couple of links up here. In fact, somebody's already done it for me there, so we'll put some details up at the end for you as well. Rob asked the question, quite an interesting one here. How is this information stored in the CRM after they start to transact? One of the questions I was going to talk to you about is, towards the end, but we might as well deal with it now, is what's the situation with integration, Kye? Have you had those conversations? I'm guessing as a repeat user, you will have had conversations with those guys about foundations and that. Is it
yeah,
kind
absolutely. You've got two parts of integration. You've got the holy grail is two-way seamless communication, and obviously that's what the Reapit Foundation and some of the other platforms are now working towards to make that happen. And so it's not there in its entirety at the moment, but it's happening, and that's why I say I think the journey over the next 2 years will be really get to the point of where agents have what they think they have. We already integrate with all the main CRM players, hence why we're running properties and the algorithm. The CRM is still and will continue to always remain the source of truth. That's the central store of data of your business. What we're talking about is how information feeds in and out of the CRM, so it does the other functions you want in that business, and cuts down data duplication, manual intervention, and such like. And that is really where we're working towards. So certainly, for example, you mentioned there's some Reapit foundations. That is going to be an all single dancing once it's fully operational. Areas at the cutting edge of that, we're already testing the full first stage of the integration. That's already happening. But there is a roadmap for that, like there would be with the other main CRMs. So I think it's important to understand it's not a flick of the switch and you're going to see everything you get in whatever product you're using. It's going to happen into the CRM. It's an evolution, and it will take time, but certainly the journey has started on that path, and that's why I have a lot of hope that over the next 18 months to 2 years you're going to see end-to-end solutions with all third parties products plugged in.
Excellent. Well, that's good. So talk us through then, Kye. How do you see this for a traditional agency, whatever that is? How do you see the likes of Area modernising an agency like that? Over what sort of time period would you expect to start seeing effects and benefits?
You'll see effects and benefits because if you understand most agencies who allowed a bit of technology to run this do one of two things. They either manage digital leads through email inboxes, or they do what they call an applicant import into their CRM system. Well, as we know, email is a very inefficient way of managing large volume of data, and it's also a very hard way of managing what is actually going on within the email system. And applicant import into a CRM system can very easily get lost in the day-to-day data that you are processing. Most people will have many existing clients within their CRM, and a new lead that is not yet qualified, in my eyes, should not go directly into a CRM. The reason being, and we've got considerable data to support this, somewhere around a third of customers that will approach you from a digital aspect will not end up being qualified, suitable, or appropriate to be in your CRM. Why then populate the database of your day-to-day operation with all this bloated information you can't do a lot with?
It's just rubbish in, rubbish out again, isn't it? It's the whole metaphor. Don't act surprised when your email nurture campaigns don't work because you've just filled it again with a load of dross.
Exactly. I mean, there are great tools out there that you can nurture those customers to become responsive, and then they might end up in the CRM system, but use the tool to do that. I wouldn't put that straight into a CRM and then try and expect your agents that are already time restricted on what they have available to then start cleansing the database. It becomes a pool that you spiral downhill in pretty quickly.
When you showed me it, Kye, many moons ago, it's got to be fair, and I had a couple of drinks at that stage, but it still looked fantastic, was one of the things that I am very aware of. You spoke about the second way that leads get in is that, via those applicant import tools, which can be a little flat. And the problem is it just moves one problem from your inbox to kind of within the system, doesn't it? Now, what I was particularly interested in, the way that area, it's almost set SLAs within the software, didn't it, to make sure that, you know, people were on top of that, that it was almost seen as almost dirty if they hadn't been dealt with in a period of time. You've clearly spent a lot of time thinking about that. You've almost, am I right in thinking you've almost gamified that to make sure that your teams are on top of it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the important thing is response is clearly got to happen in a business. So to have leads that are not responded to is just criminal in the first instance. But then, you know, what's fair and reasonable for a consumer to weigh? You know, if you make an inquiry and you are a genuine customer, what is a reasonable amount of time frame to deal with that? And then how do you move it on to the next stage so the customer can feel like they're going on to knowing that I can do business with this agent because they've already taken me to the next stage. So the way the dashboard works in the real world is that we're able to be a lot more clever about thinking about individual users in a business and not just a branch or a department, and then what data you want them to see and how they manage it. The whole point of that is, if I'm an agent sitting in a busy office and I've got X amount of leads turning up every day, it's very hard for me to be super efficient in responding, managing that. When do I decide to contact that customer and such like? Well, the dashboard and the brains behind the system does all of that for you. So the agent only has to initiate the contact, and we manage all the platforms through telephone, text messaging, email. It's all done through the platform, all in one place, and it just says to the agent, you now need to contact this customer again because you've been unsuccessful the previous time. And it manages all that on behalf of the individual agent. So therefore it takes that thinking away from their day-to-day operation and keeps them with a clear head. And then from business owners and senior management, they have the ability to have eyes on all of what's happening. So within 2 or 3 clicks, they'll get an indication of what any agent, what any customer, any marketing channel is delivering to their business. And that's delivered in real time, which obviously is highly, highly valuable. If you're going to make a decision that's going to affect your business tomorrow, make it on the most up-to-date information. And that's what we do, I think, better than any system I've seen.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? You talk about any other system out there, and actually there's very little contention there for actually stopping what you've just highlighted as the many people talk about it, the leaky bucket, and that's exactly what you're almost putting plasters over all those holes in the bucket, aren't you? And making sure that if you are spending money, as the vast majority of agents do, on suppliers to help nurture leads, that you're keeping hold of them and dealing with them in the proper way. I suppose, look, you stressed as well there at the beginning, obviously, the need for patience, the need to work at this to get it done. But you're an agent, you know what agents are like, and I'm certainly very greedy. What are the short-term benefits? What can an agent expect in the first month of going live with Area?
Yeah, so what you've got two sides to it. You've got the end user, the agents that are on the customer-facing end of dealing and processing leads, and for them. Anyone that's seen our platform or any of our existing customers would attest to this. It's super easy. There's 5 buttons within the platform that an agent has to interact with per lead. And we've made the interface super simple, so it's quicker and easier to deal with what you need to deal with. So the end user, and this happens very quickly, is their volume and velocity of being able to deal with leads and a much higher quality of response, both in time and the quality, improve significantly. I caveat that for business owners or senior management, because once you've got over the initial excitement of getting the system in, where they had blissful ignorance about what was going on in the business, they suddenly have full insight into what's happening in the business, and inevitably there is data in that they don't lie. Where they thought they was doing X, they're actually doing Y. Yeah. And you know, this happened in my own business. I thought I had a good estate agency running really well, and we have good agents operating day to day. But you then get data that contradicts that, and how you react and deal with that is, do you accept that and then start changing your business to improve? And I decided and made the decision that I liked having that data so I could make changes to ensure that the issues that we had in the early stage, we started removing. So End users get a great experience because it makes their life 10 times easier from day one. Senior management and people who make decisions about the direction of business have some decisions to make because it will tell them stuff about their business they didn't know.
Yeah, great. That's fantastic. And what is there an ideal kind of client demographic you're looking for? You know, is there a certain size of agent, a type of agent that works best with area, or is it genuinely available for all?
It's available for all, and we have from owner operators operating out of one site that they intimately know every staff and actively involved in the customer contact, to large chains where they have many departments, wide geography, call centres and such like. There's different challenges depending on what business you are. Even an owner operator that's sitting in an office and believes they know individuals and their customers with great detail still get information about their business they didn't know. And of course, large operators, it gives them much more flexibility in terms of how they manage and control inbound leads, whether they pass leads from one site to another, how you create opportunities. So if someone's looking to sell or rent, how do you get that opportunity front and centre to the people in those other offices that could deal with that? So there's the information is so accessible. Within 2 or 3 clicks, you can get any answer on a customer, an agent, source, and how you're delivering. That then leads you to make decisions about where and how that then goes. So there's a lot that happens, but it's an evolving process. And the typical customer historically for us has been, it's no surprise in that I think 95% of our customers are agents that are in the top 3% of agents in the country. Yeah. Why is that? One, they're typically interested in customer service, and you have to be passionate about that, otherwise it's pointless because you might as well just leave customers hanging. They're interested in making sure they're embracing the best tools to interact with those customers, and then they're clearly having a motivation to make their business more efficient. So it's not surprising that's where our customer base is typically being steered towards, those that want to improve and up their game with their business. Yeah,
the people, when they hear the rings phoning, sort of twitch and sort of, I can't stand that. Okay, and look, let's talk about who we've mentioned a couple of the clients already, and actually another one's just jumped on here. The multi-award-winning Assad. Fantastic product that genuinely adds value to our service. Where were you up to at the moment? Thanks for that, by the way, Assad. Where are you up to at the moment in terms of rollout? What sort of businesses are using you, and what are they saying?
It's a whole mixture actually, and we've got now customers the length and the breadth of the country, and all our business has come through customer referrals to date. So hence why we're not really in the public domain as such, because it's just been referral to referral, which has been fabulous.
But I've teased you on to Kerfuffle, haven't I? So I've teased you out.
Here today.
No, there's no such thing as a secret in this industry, once I know.
No. And Assad there is a classic example. He's an owner-operator of a fabulous business. It's really, very, very busy office. They're having to deal with high volume. And we've been able to integrate with their CRM system and really allow them to do some stuff. And they've fully embraced the system and the benefits that can happen, and they're getting great results from that.
Excellent. And any of the others you can mention at all, or doing a shameless name drop, as I would have done to you many moons ago?
Yeah, we've got some. We have got some really genuinely good companies. A lot of ones that you actually you communicate with on a regular basis as well. So these are companies that are either also can be involved in PropTech themselves. They've got their own entities going. Others that are just very good agencies, very well run. They're normally, even on the larger scale agencies that we deal with, there are still people that are really actively involved in the business and take real interest in making sure they deliver. That's our kind of client, because we get that, they get it.
Would it be fair to say that if you're the sort of company that had a client services department, that this is tailor-made for you, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And we posed the question, a lot of sort of central client departments came about because of the need of agents not understanding or having full confidence they were processing leads properly and efficiently. And we have customers that have client centers, that their client centers are using the area platform, because it's still much more efficient for them to do that through this place than the email or CRM import. The ability then is also, as a consumer, I would like to speak to the person that has the most knowledge about a property or the particular area, because that's going to give me the answer that I want.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to get to that stage by providing a level of information that helps the agent do what they want. And as I say, consumers are showing that they are definitely willing to do this. It saves the agent time, and therefore that data can end up going to the agent that can offer the most value to that customer experience on the next stage. So area manages the first stage. The agent then gets involved and creates and really builds that company relationship beyond that. And it just gives them a much better inroad to the second stage of that initial relationship. If you think about new leads, they are the most important lead that you are going to deal with in a business, because you have the opportunity to win a new customer to your brand. And how you deal with that, whether that's efficiently or not, has a big bearing on whether that customer relationship will continue long term. And that's what we're about, is helping you win and maintain that relationship from the early stage.
Perfect. Well, we've got a couple more questions let's just deal with. So Sharon asked a question: can the leads be sent to specific team members depending on the individual property?
They can, in terms of a central department, because what you have in some agencies now, I think where the question alludes to, a certain agent takes a property on and they will manage that relationship. So you have teams of people, and it depends on how you present that to a portal. So are you presenting as a department, or are you presenting as an office or a virtual office? So how the lead is sent from a portal, it determines where we can send it to. But we look at individual users, so whether they're based in one office but deal with leads on multiple sites, it can be figured that way. So yes, the answer to that is yes. We understand where the lead needs to go, and there's normally a path that a particular company wants for that to happen.
So configurable system, they need to talk to you in more detail just to make sure it's nailed off. But on the whole, you've built this isn't just a one size fits all, is it? You will look at the business and try and match their business practices to the and make area fit accordingly, is what it sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. It's semi-customizable, and that's why the onboarding and configuration stage we really try and get right, understanding the business, the operating hours, what messaging they want to go. The self-onboarding part, for example, is configurable. So certain businesses are asking certain questions depending on the path, whether it's a generic inquiry, a sales inquiry, a valuation inquiry. You can ask different questions depending on that path. Area understands that, and they're all configurable relative to the company.
Perfect, great. Rob was just following up on a point we said earlier. 100% Kye, completely agree. They shouldn't be in their CRM. Just to qualify, shouldn't be in the CRM until actually qualified, isn't it? Which is the key point there. Josh Brain is saying hello, Josh. Rob again says, do you find this is one of the biggest challenges in adoption due to users being exposed to what they actually do?
Change in any business is always hard to implement, but it has to be embraced by the senior management. If you was to ask my people, the ground troops at Keaton's that deal with customers on a daily basis, if I was to say I was going to take the system away from them today, they would shoot me.
That's great. That's all.
So I think that says a lot about, as agents, we're generally geared up towards generating business, and we earn money from that. So anything that's going to make us more efficient in doing that is a tool that we're going to like. Yes, there is the big brother thing. I should give everyone a bit of background. When we set up the system, we put a lot of restrictions in about trying to manage data ending up to individual agents and people not using the system and such like. Well, actually, what's happened over time as it's evolved and we've got to understand consumer and agent behaviour is actually all those restrictions have been removed. And it self-polices itself, because ultimately everyone wants to do a good job, and that's what they strive towards. And we're about showing that front and centre of doing a good job. And the system just shows that readily to them as well.
There is another point here, Kye. We should whisper this quietly. you are in a sales game as well. You know, for the figures don't lie. Those figures are there ultimately to support you, or yes, to embarrass you if you're not doing the job. If you don't like it, you know, there are other plenty of jobs out there that are far more.
There is a direct correlation, 100% now, between the best users in the area and the best business that they develop.
Is that right? You can genuinely make
correlation now. So if you think of all the data that we collect in between, you've got a lead that comes in, and most agents track number of appointments, offers, conversion ratios, and such like. But you have this massive void between top of funnel and you're dealing with a transaction. So we manage that, and I can tell you now, those that do best in terms of volume and then the data conversion of that volume do the best in generating business. So it's a really, really good insight into
that's just worth it in itself for me. Just talking about that. If you can talk about if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, and you have the solution to one of those key elements there. Yeah, I mean, above and beyond everything else that it does in terms of customer satisfaction, that's a fantastic tool. There are other tools out there though, Kye. So how do you stand out from some of the other platforms that profess to try and do what you do? Because I'll be honest, I don't know that many that fit in your particular niche.
Yeah, there isn't a direct comparable, to be honest, because you have autoresponders and lead management, but they're only doing part of the function. So, and some of the CRMs do part of the function, but the difference really is that we're trying to manage the whole digital experience, not just an autoresponder and a first stage of that. So we're trying to take the customer a whole lot further down the road to give the agent all that time back in a later stage. And then what no system has done, and this has been 3.5 years in the making of this, is we're about how do we make agents more efficient? How can we make their life easier and get them to process more to allow them to earn more money? And I know, looking at our dashboards and how it works and seeing how our agents interact, there's nothing that even comes close to the ability that we can throw that power back to the agents to deal with.
Perfect. So nuts and bolts. Give us an idea of the pricing model.
Yeah, it's generally set up from a platform cost. It's based on users, which is quite normal in a tech space, offices or virtual offices, depending on a company setup, and then the channels that you're bringing sources into it. So, i.e., portals are a channel, your own website is a channel, and then there's a usage-based side, which is down to obviously the volume, and that is based on sort of phone calls, text messaging. It's all done through the platform, so it allows agents not to go off piece. It's all managed through the central process. We can do NPS, automatic response to customer surveys, and that if they want that. One of the things we've introduced, which is really going to be helpful, because some agencies have been trying to build this into their own website, we've just introduced a widget now that you can put onto your own agency website that allows you to go straight into the area flow. So if customers inquire about this property, it goes straight into a diary setup and the onboarding process. So we've saved agents the ability to try and build that into the website area, can manage and deal with that just by adding a widget to the website.
Fantastic. That's really, really good. And give us an idea of what supports it's behind, because often, a lot of people will get very, they get very enthused about these shiny things, and then they find that it's difficult to onboard. They lose faith quite quickly. The support isn't there. You mentioned the self-service elements, and self-service is great. In fact, it's preferred as long as it's easy to do. Just talk us through how you're able to support people during the onboarding process, and typically how long that takes as well.
Yeah, you've got 1 to 2 weeks typically in terms of the onboarding and configuration, because there's a lot that's customizable to you as a particular business. So it's important to try and get those questions correct, and that they're all configurable thereafter, and you can manage all of that, your individual users, your opening hours, what you want the user to see, you can manage through the dashboard yourself. Yeah. There's help videos for the individual elements within the product. And then because it's customizable and the configuration can change, you will change things as you get data come through. You will suddenly have one of your offices, 2 staff have gone off sit. This COVID situation is a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
Through the platform, within a couple of clicks, you can then divert that data to another location or share that data to another location.
Right.
So resourcing externally really, really helps the situation. From individual maintaining and looking after, we do end-to-end support. So one user within a business can raise a ticket through Area and we respond to them directly. So it doesn't have to go through a central IT department or such like. It's end-to-end user support.
Excellent. Okay, that's absolutely fantastic. And I believe we've managed to winkle out your first ever exclusive deal as well for our lovely Kerfuffle members. Actually, it's a bit weird. As a Kerfuffle member, do you have to give yourself the discount, or does that not work? Anyway, we'll deal with that, and we'll deal with that. Yeah, you've been really kind, haven't you, in terms of removing any of the setup costs? Can you just give us a bit of background on that, because that's quite a sizable saving, isn't it?
Yeah. It's quite a sizable chunk of work that we get involved with, and we really steer and help a business through that, because we look at it both from the tech side but also the agency side, and we can give a lot of insights because we've learned all the tricks of the trade from the agents. We can steer the owners of the business about configuration that would be appropriate for what they're trying to achieve, and then the tech side is supported by our engineers that can make things happen, both with your CRM system, all the channels, any valuation tools and such like. Anything that's steering digital traffic to your business, we like to pick up and manage, because the beauty of it, another way of creating efficiency, is if there's one path for a customer to come in digitally and it's the same regardless of channel, there's then one internal process to manage that.
Yeah.
Most businesses have a different channel depending on the path and a different way of interacting with that customer. We remove that, we get it down to one customer channel, one agent channel. It just makes you much, much more efficient.
Excellent. Well, that's absolutely fantastic. Thanks for putting that out there. So, yeah, once again, any Kerfuffle members, go and have a look at, obviously, on the landing page for Area on there. Reach out to Kye directly and just mention you're a Kerfuffle member, or click I'm interested and we'll pass any of those leads on. But once again, cuts out any of the initial setup and training costs, normally between £500 and £1,500. So that's absolutely fantastic, Kye. Thank you. I'm not sure what I've done to deserve that, but that's very kind of you. We've got a couple of last questions I'll just have a look at as well here. So we've got Rob makes the point, going back over what you said, very interesting, as it helps towards the argument over the value of portals. Obviously, always raging, but never more so than at the moment. Around 40% of leads coming in have a property to sell, not on the market yet. Okay, yeah, useful there. And then Sharon follows up with that. Does the setup mean I've got lots to do with the portals? as if true on form, I hate dealing with them. Can you help Sharon out? Or just...
Sharon, on that, the portals are really easy, actually. We just provide a new email account to forward on to. So actually the portals can be done within 24 hours. From registering you on the dashboard, you could have the portal leads coming in the next day. So that's really actually very, very simple. Normally the one that complicates it a bit more, and that's one of the reasons we brought this widget out, is website, your own website, and who hosts it and who manages it. The widget button now, just add that in and it will get all the Area functionality by just adding that in.
Perfect. A classic Simon Whale oversell there, Sharon. Promise from Kye, you never have to talk to the portals ever again. No, that's great, Kye. I can look from my own point of view. You've been one of the best agencies I've ever dealt with in many years at Repix, seeing it come out. I was very interested when I saw it develop. When we first caught up. Was it 18 months ago now, and to see the size, scale and quality of the agency it's going to, and how strongly they're already coming out with it, I think it's absolutely fantastic. So I can't recommend it enough that they should pick up the phone and talk to you there if you believe in that customer service and dealing with your leads. And frankly, if you're not, you're in the wrong business. Kye, thanks once more again. Really look forward to stay in touch with us. Obviously, keep us updated with some of the case studies from clients. I think it'll be really interesting.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Simon.
Cheers.